Hello to all of you. Let's just get everything going here this evening, and we'll start recording from this side, so we should be good to go. Okay, we should have everything up and running. You should be able to see my screen. It's lovely to have so many of you online tonight. I have lost my voice. I'm unashamedly a very passionate South African supporter, and to be honest, it was an amazing win at Ellis Park, and I was there. And my kind of logic was the louder I shouted, the more chance they had of winning. So my voice has been a little bit scratchy this week. So what are we going to be going through tonight? And we do have the usual Q&A, so you will be able to let me know if you've got any questions or anything that you want to be going through. So I'm just going to open up the question panel here. But really, we get asked all the time, how do you do it? Just yesterday, actually, I had a lady, asking me, I'm not really quite sure, but she was kind of saying, how do you do what you've done? And I asked her how many properties she's done, and she said, no, she's done about 5, and she wants to help other people, invest in London properties. And I just found it fairly interesting and intriguing. She said, how many had we done? And we've done over 2,200. And so people always ask us, they say, well, how did you do it? What is this kind of secret to your success? And so what I wanted to do was to share with people the inside information to our success and what basically what the most sophisticated people that we get to deal with. I mean, one of the privileges of my life and certainly my business partners' lives is that we get to hang around, to network, to associate, and to become friends with some of the most successful people in South Africa and globally. And I really wanted to start with that little poem, if you want to call it, or that saying that says, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. It was said by Leonardo da Vinci. I know one of the banks have tried to coin it as their own, but he came out with that many, many years ago. And I have a fundamental belief that people in business try and make it as complicated as possible. I think it's a 20th century belief system. My logic being that the more complicated they make it, the more difficult it is to understand, the more that they can keep you poor, and the more fees that they can earn in the process. And I truly believe that business is actually fairly simple. And the more simple you make it, the more transparent it is, the more people can trust, and the more people can understand. And I truly believe that the 21st century is actually about common sense. And so nothing I'm going to teach you tonight is rocket science. It's common sense. But unfortunately, as people always say, common sense is not that common. And so what I want to do tonight is to share with you just some of the secrets from some of the people that we've learned from. And I think most importantly, really and truly, how we adapted, built, and modeled our business and ultimately our success in terms of where we are. Now, don't get me wrong, we've certainly had our share of failures, and maybe that it's been the failures that have added more to this than the successes. So I want to see who is online tonight. I want to see who's active and who's awake. Who here would like me to share a secret with you? And this secret is the same secret that Warren Buffett, oops, sorry, one slide too early. It's the secret that I've used to really accumulate the knowledge that I've accumulated, and certainly my business partners and the people that I am mentored by and the people that I respect. It's a secret that is used over and over again. So I can see that Rob would like me, Annie, Clinton, Brian. Okay, so we've got a few of you awake. Brian, is that the same Brian from Hong Kong? I just wanted to see because it's really late in Hong Kong if it is. Okay, so the secret really is that it started for me when I was at school. I really didn't enjoy reading. I'm sure that there's plenty of other people out there that are like that. And so in matric, I had to read 7 English books and 7 Afrikaans books. And so to make life a lot easier for myself, I read Kring and Dibos. Well, I didn't actually read that. I read Circles in the Forest, and then I put down Kring and Dibos in the Afrikaans version so that I could try and limit the reading as much as possible. But the lucky thing that happened for me in life, and everything in life happens for a reason, was I moved to London. And in London, you would sit on a tube for over an hour. And to be honest, whether you like reading or not, it was a hell of a lot more interesting than reading the ads while sitting in the tube. So I started reading when I got to London, really quite prolifically. And I was riding on a train 1 hour in one direction and 1 hour in another direction, so 2 hours a day. And I really started to gather and gain so much information that I never realized was possible. I mean, one of the first books I ever read was in the business space was Real Estate Riches by by Dr. Dolph DeRuis and Rich Dad Poor Dad. You've all heard of them. But those just opened my eyes up. And after I got started, there was just no stopping me. Now, a lot of people say, yeah, but I don't have the time. I've got children, I've got families, I don't have time to read. Well, if you don't know about this website, audible.com, then tonight's webinar will be worth absolutely every minute that you're on here, because my business partner, Jakub, consistently tells us that he hates reading and doesn't like reading in English. He's Afrikaans. And I was like, well, that's fine. Why don't you go to Audible? Every good book is actually, in my opinion, I found on Audible. You can download it on Audible. You can put it on your iPhone or your Samsung, and you can listen to it while you're running, while you're in the car. I mean, I listened to Think and Grow Rich for the third or fourth time, I can't remember exactly, third time maybe, when I ran Comrades. So, there's zero excuses anymore as to where you can and can't get the information. And then the last tip that I wanted to share with you, which is my most amazing tip I've had this year, and that's from Lyndon Booth. Go and check out Lyndon Booth if you want to. But he's actually one of my coaches at the moment in Flow. And he said something to me a couple of weeks ago, actually, and he said to me, he gets up at 4:30 every morning, and every morning he shares time with great people. And I was like, dude, who's awake at 4:30 in the morning? And it was, he said, no, he goes on TED Talks. And any of you that have been on TED Talks, it is no longer than 18-minute talks. They're on the web, TED.com, and there are literally thousands and thousands of videos from the greatest minds on the earth. And the cool thing is that someone can have a PhD that could have spent 30 years trying to understand something, and they've got to bring it down into 18 minutes. And so every single morning he starts with a TED Talk. And I tell you what, I've been doing it for the last month, and it's blown my mind. In fact, many of these videos I've actually watched, like this one, Ken Robinson on schools create creativity. I completely agree, and my son's 2.5, and I doubt that he'll be going the traditional route, because I really think that the schooling system is completely archaic. But that is another topic for another day. So those are just some of the ways that one can get access to this type of knowledge. And so I wanted to really share with you, I was listening to a book that I would highly recommend called Positive Intelligence that I'm listening to at the moment, and I was listening while running this morning. And in this book, the gentleman was talking about how, in a computer system, you've got single track computers, and then or serial computers, and then parallel computers. And serial computers is, where you literally, if X equals Y, then then you do it. But parallel is where they can apply logic. And what it said is that, again, coming back to that simplicity thing, is that the parallel computers are the powerful ones, because they can take a lot of information and they can look for trends. And I've consistently said this, but I'm always trying to analyze from friends, family, and some of the wealthiest people on the planet. I'm reading Richard Branson's book at the moment, Like a Virgin. He's got another one coming out that I can't wait to read. For me, I always want to know absolutely everything about who they are, what their psychology is, and how they did it. But I want to share with you the two most important things that I can pick up from investors like Warren Buffett, George Soros, Jim Rogers, Robert Kiyosaki, or Dr. Dolph DeRuis, Robert Kiyosaki, my good friend and business partner, Henny Besadenhout, and Yanni Millman. And Yanni, if you are online tonight, I apologize. There's a singer called Yanni Millman who clearly gets more social media than you do, but that's the best picture I could find. But there is one thing in common before I tell you those two things. What is the one thing in common between all those books and all those people? Okay, so we've got successful, we've got wealth, we've got, I'm not hearing you, successful. So no, I personally have read all of those books. I would highly recommend Snowball by Warren Buffett. The Winning Investment Habits I bought recently with Warren Buffett and George Soros. It's a great book. Jim Rogers' Street Smarts is phenomenal. Real Estate Riches is the first property book that I ever read at 19, and I equate a lot of my success to it. Rich Dad Poor Dad I've spoken about, and then Henny and Yanni Millman. Well, I haven't read their books, but I've had the privilege of spending time with them, lots of time with them. And, I've met personally Jim Rogers. I'm a business partner with Dr. Dolph DeRuis. And, for me, it very much, I've met Robert Kiyosaki, but certainly someone I'd like to meet is Warren Buffett. But what are the two things that they do, basically? And I'm just looking here. It says they all wrote a book, Simply Investing, and they share their knowledge. Do you know that there's only two things that they do that is different from everyone else? And it is so obvious that you're probably going to think that I'm lying, but the more you read into it and the more you understand it and the more you think about it, the more you'll see that what I'm talking about. So the first thing is that they do all their own information and research. So if you read the book about Warren Buffett and George Soros, they consistently tell you that it's all about their own research. They do not worry about what other people tell them. They don't worry about the press. They don't worry about what the market's telling them. They don't want to worry about what the stock market's telling them or the property industry. When you look at it, I mean, Jim Rogers, if you've read his book, Street Smarts, he has for 40 years, for 4 decades, has consistently outperformed the market. I mean, he literally, in the 70s, was the first hedge fund to be investing out of America. He called Asia 20 years before everyone else. He called the global crisis 5 years before it happened. He got the bottom of the commodities market bull run, literally called it within 3 months. And so it is all about the research that they do. They are literally focused on the research. They're not trying to find, I wrote here, everyone is always looking for a quick fix, a quick way to make money or a quick way to invest. But sophisticated people don't work like that. It is a simple formula. They go out and they research the market. When you take someone like Henny Besaidnout, he has literally been, he opened a company in the Middle East. He went to the Middle East for 4 years before he did any business. And he still lost money. So he learned from that experience. And when he went to Australia with me, he went for over 2 years. We went at least 4 times a year for 2 years and did nothing. And then ultimately only got started. In America, we went to America 4 times a year for over 2.5 years until Henny got started. Yanni Mormon, he's just been with us over on a buyer's trip over in July. And most of the successful people I know take it upon themselves to get the information and to do the research, and they don't listen to other people in terms of what is actually happening and where it actually is. The second one is that they partner. I've also had the privilege of meeting a lot of people that can build a business to R1 million or build a business to $1 million. And I know that sounds hell of exciting, but it's really not that exciting because they tend to, even if they work for themselves, tend to be completely overworked because they try and do everything themselves. They don't know how to delegate. Richard Branson, in the book that I'm reading at the moment, he literally said there's only 3 things that you need to do as an entrepreneur. And I think we can safely say that he's one of the most successful the world has ever seen. The first one is you need to be able to stick to your vision. The second one is that you need to be able to find great people. And the third one is you need to be able to delegate. Ladies and gentlemen, it is all about partnering and finding the right partners. Now, when one looks at it, it sounds so simple. That's all you got to do. You got to get the right information and you got to find the right partners. And so the next question really comes in, well, how do you actually achieve it? Because again, most things in life, it's the simplicity is the beauty, but it's the experience that ultimately helps them make the right decisions. So the question is, how do they do that? And the first one is they get hands-on. They don't rely on other people. They don't rely on the market or on newspapers or on magazines or on other people's opinions or, with all due respect, consultants, because they don't actually know what they're doing. They get dirty, they get hands-on, and they get on the ground. They ask lots of questions as well. I mean, when Yanni Millman came for a week, I've never been asked so many questions in my life. It's like his mind just never switched off. He wanted to know everything about our business from beginning to end. And even the stuff that didn't interest or have anything to do with him, he still wanted to know that part. It absolutely fascinated me how hands-on he wanted to be in terms of understanding it. They go there. I've spoken to you about Henny. He never invests anywhere without physically going and seeing it. And he gets on an airplane and he flies there. He's just he's building hospitals up into Africa now. He's just flown to Zambia and to Kenya. Now, some people would say, oh, I don't have the time, I'm too old, I want to chill out. He's 60 years old. and yet he's got the energy of a 21-year-old. And if that's what he's like at 60, well, and he said that he was going to slow down at 60. Well, I'd hate to see him if he was busy. But the bottom line is they get on the ground. When Yanni and Frederick Millman, they came over. They want to invest overseas. They got involved. Peter Fenstra, another gentleman that's well known here in South Africa. When he's interested in investing, he gets on an airplane, he goes over there, gets the information, he gets on the ground. Because when it comes, it's the slight difference between Jim Rogers and Warren Buffett and George Soros is they can do the research, they can read all the reports, and they can dig into the data. But when you're in property, it's about getting on the ground. It's about kicking the dirt. It's about talking to the taxi drivers, and it's about understanding the opportunity from the people on the ground. The third thing is about having systems to get the information, because a lot of people can have information overload. You can have far too much information, and you can end up having analysis paralysis. And so every single successful person that I've dealt with has systems to decipher the information. And those systems might not be complicated, but they certainly are used over and over again. And then as they learn and as they make mistakes, when something works or when it doesn't, they adapt their systems. And Dr. Hannes Dreyer said many years ago, and I laughed at him, he said, making money is too easy. In fact, it's boring, because all you do is you do it over and over and over again. And what he meant was you do the same thing over and over and over again. The fourth thing is about having the partner test. I think probably the greatest thing that comes with experience is firstly knowing what information to listen to and what information not to listen to. But I would probably say the most important thing from my experience is being able to understand what is a good partner and what is not a good partner. To be able to ask the questions that will quickly determine whether someone knows what they're talking about, whether they have the integrity, whether the interest is lined, or whether they're just looking for a quick buck. And I'll give you an example. I went over to America in 2010. There were fantastic opportunities. I went to Vegas. I could pick up brand new 4-bedroom houses for $80,000 that used to sell for $320,000. But I could not find people on the ground that I could trust. And I truly believe that if you do not have partners that can help you execute on the opportunity, you will never, ever succeed. I went to another thing that I saw down in Florida and Tampa that was marketed and tried to be sold here in South Africa in 2009. Now, again, I got an airplane. I went there. I won't bore you with all the details, but they drove me from Johannesburg to Migrate. They tried to sell me a building where no unit had been sold in the last 12 months, and only 11 out of 150 units had been rented. And I got back on the plane. I flew back to South Africa with my tail between my legs, because I realized that in America at the time, I couldn't find people that I could trust. And then the last thing is that I want to give you an example. So I want to show you the type of example. So let's look at Australia. We wanted to get into Australia. I'd been to Australia in 2003, and so I knew it. I'd spent 10 weeks there. In fact, much more than most people. I watched the entire World Cup from beginning to end, and we traveled all over with 11 people. But when I wanted to invest there, we went in the back end of 2007. I personally did 4 trips to Australia before I did anything. And that's how long it took me to understand the market, to get to know the partners. Then in June of 2009, I met Henny Besadenhout. We ended up going about another 4 times to be able to get the right information. So he was actually being able to leverage and leapfrog upon a lot of the work I'd done. Plus, he had also been on his own before he met me. And then we collaborated together in terms of our partners and what we did. And we found some good partners. I introduced him to a number of people. And, in those years, it doesn't, it feels like a lifetime ago. It was only 6 years ago now, 5-6 years ago. I watched and I learned from Henny as to how he picks and chooses his partners, because I thought I was good and I thought I had experience, but I realized how much I still had to learn from a gentleman that was 23 years older than me and had been there, done that many more times than I. And through his ability to choose the right partners, we started with $4 million in 2009, right at the peak of the global financial crisis. And 4.5 years later, that was turned into $40 million. There were 2,000 investors. That company got actually listed. It's on the Australian Stock Exchange today and is worth $200 million. And so what I'm telling you, I've personally been involved with. I've personally witnessed. And what I want to share with you is some of the things that happened and how it happened. When you look at it, it's all about getting on the ground. I mean, if you look at this picture here again, There is Yanni Millman, there's Machiel, there's Frederick, there's Henry Benderman, there's Henny, myself, and Yaku. I mean, this is right up in North Dakota. No one in America even knows where North Dakota is. It's minus 40 degrees in the middle of winter, and yet we're up there because there's more oil there than there is in Texas. This is one of the most economically resilient areas in the world, and we were there on the ground understanding the opportunity. We've been going, just Henny and myself have been there 5 times in the last 12 months. John Chin, our partner, has been there 14 times. In fact, he's actually moved up there now. He lives half a month. That's what I mean about getting on the ground and ultimately getting the results. And that's why we're getting well above average returns in these niche markets. So when I say about these different systems, we've actually got a PPM, which explains, it's a private placement memorandum, which explains our entire system. We refer to it as our global investment due diligence system. It is trademarked, and if you would like a copy of the PPM, I can send it to you, and it'll give you a much deeper analysis of each and everything. So if you just type in GIDS, GIDDS, then you will be able to get a much better understanding of what we do. But in simple terms, and I just want to see here quickly in terms of where we're at. So, okay, there we are. So I'm going to run through, I don't have a huge amount of time here, but I want to just run through some of the systems that we've used in terms of where it is. So most of you have heard the Global Wealth Index. That's our ability to be able to map around the world and to look at the impacts of currency and economy. That's the work that we did with Clem Sunter. And that then leads into our global property system. And that was very much based on Clem Sunter. That's what we wrote the book on, Property Going Global, where Clem Sunter endorsed the 4-dimensional model I did. And there we don't invest with our heart, we invest with our head. When the markets are good in London, I own a number of properties in London. I invest in London, but right now I'm not investing in London. In fact, I'm actually taking money out of London to invest elsewhere because I think the market is highly overvalued. I think the yields are horrendously low. I think that interest rates can only go in one direction when they've been the lowest they have been in 350 years. I think the market is being manipulated by overseas investors with sentiment who are not basing it on reality, and I think there will be a market correction. I personally would rather be in far safer markets where the fundamentals are far more sound. We look at the structuring system. I mean, if I just take what we've done with Grant Thornton in America, we spent a huge amount of time understanding the tax, the structuring, and the compliance. So many people, more than 80% of South Africans that invest overseas, according to research that came out in 2010, actually lose money. And the reason being is that they try and just go and buy a property. They try and get on a plane and go to London for a 3-day holiday, and they think that they're going to pick up a good opportunity. Well, they are horribly mistaken. I always say to, what would the chance of a British person coming to Johannesburg and finding good property? But the biggest problem is that buying the property is only 20%. 80% of it is about the tax, the structuring, the compliance, the management, the maintenance, and the ongoing. And so we don't leave it to the end. We start with it. Then we look at our partnering system. In Brazil at the moment, there's a company there, and I'm not going to mention names, but they're all over the world. They supposedly got all these offices. And yet, when Henny and I looked at it, Henny met them at MIPIM, and it looked like a good opportunity. John Chin went down there to go and check it out. You might notice a repetition of a system that consistently takes place. And when he got on the ground, he found that the guy owned 12 bulletproof cars. He had the latest Rolex watches. He owned a football team. And it just seemed extravagant money spending. And they also said that all returns would be in pounds, which we didn't understand how they were doing the currency fixing. And we basically came to the conclusion that it was a pyramid scheme. And sure as anything, 12 months later, it is now being exposed all over the world as another pyramid scheme. So there's a simple lesson that we do, and obviously there's a huge amount more to it. And I just want to check there. Rob said that he's battling to hear. Is that the same for everyone else? Can you guys hear me? Okay, just if someone could just tell me, just make sure that it's only Rob. Okay, so Clinton says he's good. Okay, so you might have heard me talk about the pig and the chicken, and I learned this from Henny. I give full credit to Henny for this. And the one thing I've learned with Henny is that, when I was younger, and to be fair, still to this day, I'm very hungry for good deals. I like looking, for good deals, and when I see them, I want to partake in them. And what I've learned from very wealthy people is that they don't rush. There's no need to rush. No matter how good the deal is, there'll be another one tomorrow morning. And so they only like to do business, as Henny says, he only likes to do business with people he likes and that he can have fun with. And equally, they only want to do business where it's fair and on their terms and that they're not rushed. And one of the ways that Henny does this, and we call it the pig and the chicken. And when you think about it, it's a brilliant analogy. Because at breakfast, who is more committed to the breakfast, the pig or the chicken? Okay, so Jan says the pig, Brian says the pig, Alexandra says the pig. Okay, so lots of people are saying the pig. So well done. Yeah, it is very much the pig. I mean, when you think about it, the pig is a lot more committed because they put their entire life on the line, and the chicken just drops an egg and goes on their day. Well, in the property game, it's no different. Worldwide, we've experienced it on every continent where people have great deals. They want you to put in all the money and take all the risk. They are supposedly going to manage the project. And when there's a profit at the end, they want to split the profit with you 50-50. Now, on the upside, that could supposedly be fair. But on the downside, you take 100% of the risk, and it makes no sense. So one of the things that we came up with is that we only do deals with partners that are prepared to put their own money in. Because if they're prepared to put their own money in, then they believe in the deal. Now, if they say no, but they don't have money, there's two reasons they don't have money. Firstly, they've been trying to tell you that for 20 or 30 years, they've got a huge amount of experience, but they don't have money. Well, if they had experience and a success track record, then they would have money. Or it is the alternative. They don't believe enough in the project to put their own money in. Because the one thing I can tell you is that when a deal is a good deal, investors will scramble to put their money in. We found a great deal in Australia about 2 years ago, and there was about $7 million worth of equity. And we came back to South Africa, and I'll never forget the telephone call from Henny. He was like, don't tell anyone about it. It's so good that Peter and I probably just want to take the whole thing. That's what happens when deals are really good. People don't want to share them with the rest of the world. And so that's why the pig and the chicken philosophy is so important. The potential investment index, for any of you that watched the webinar last week with Richard Dunn, you would have actually seen this. And let me just close this out. And I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on this, but this came from Richard Dunn. I learned this in Australia many years ago. But it's the 100-point system, and it's our potential investment index. So what we do is we look at the overall, and it gives us an overall investment criteria between the IRR, the cash flow, the population growth, the employment growth, the capital growth, the area, the property, the infrastructure, the rentals, and the affordability. And, a lot of people look at it and they say, yeah, but Scott, it's a great property. The Dr. Hannes Dreyer has a system, Dolf de Roos has a system, and the IRR might be wonderful, but no one tells you that it's next to a squatter camp. And so the 100-point test looks at you kind of go from macro to micro, and it's somewhere in the middle because it's the medium crow, because you still need to look at the area. You still need to make sure that it's near the good schools. A good example is that in London, I always called it the rule of 10 minutes. I lived there for 9 years. Trust me, I know what it's like when you come home from work. It's late, it's dark, it's raining. I don't want to get home and have to walk in the rain. I don't want to get home from a tube and have to sit on a bus or wait for a bus in the rain and then get off. So, if it was more than 10 minutes, I would not rent there or I would not buy there. It systematically and fundamentally would have an impact on not only your rent, but on property prices. And yet people don't know that. They get on an airplane, they fly over there, they meet a lovely Savills estate agent or any other estate agent for that matter, and they get told what they want to hear. They look at a property, it looks beautiful, and they buy it. And then they can't figure out why it's not let or why the numbers are not getting or why the capital growth is not there. And that's the local knowledge that you need. That's the 100-point test. In Atlanta, hundreds or tens, hundreds of South Africans invested with one of our competitors, and yet all of them bought in a county called Clayton County. And none of them knew because they bought on paper. It all looked really good on paper. The yields, the returns, I call them paper returns. But none of them knew they were buying in Clayton County. And Clayton County in Atlanta is one of only 3 states or counties in the whole of America to have their education system downgraded. So not even the tenants want to live there, let alone the homeowners. And yet people didn't know that. And as one of my business partners in America said, you can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig. And that's why you need the 100-point test to be able to determine an area. Then you've got the REAP. So now you're in the right area, You know where the good school systems are. You know what type of the road to be. You know which infrastructure. For those of you on the webinar last week in Australia, where Richard Dunn was showing you Melbourne 2030 and telling you exactly how to know which way cities grow in Australia and where the growth nodes are. Once you're in the right area, now you've got to pick between two different properties. And that's where REAP comes into it, which is Dr. Dolph DeRoos, which is a very complicated system. It's got over 1 million lines of code to figure out all the different variables and ultimately to give you an internal rate of return and an investment index as to whether it's good or bad. The great thing is you can start to play with the variables. What happens if the interest rate goes up? What happens if it goes down? What happens if you change the loan to value? Now, I know many successful investors that just have this on a spreadsheet. I'm not saying you need a complicated system like this. I'm just saying you need a system in terms of, and this is one of the systems that we use in terms of where we are. Now, who here would like to know how we saved $1 million in about 5 minutes? Is anyone here online that would like to know that and save themselves $1 million? Okay, so it's very simple. This was another buyer's trip. You can see here that's Bruce Saunders. Who's that in that picture there? Battling to see who that was, but there's Dr. Dolph DeRoos, there's Jaco Moritz, there's Henny Besaidenout, there's Paul, our partner on the ground in Atlanta, and there's myself, funny enough, taking a video. And that's what we do on buyer's trips. We walk around, we take videos, we ask tenants what's going on, we ask the bus drivers and the taxis and try and understand it. But in simple terms, Henny Besaidenout, our partner, is a medical expert. He's been doing commercial medical property since 1992. This is currently a hospital he's building in Bloemfontein. He's actually building 14 as we speak. He's just contracted for another 10. And as I said to you, he's going through Africa. He's done medical in Australia, and now we're doing medical in America. And when you look at the brochures and the documents, and I could show you, they look beautiful, 30 pages of documentation. And to most people, this means absolutely nothing. Even to sophisticated commercial investors, it would still not mean a huge amount, because when they looked into it, the numbers that were here for the tenant improvements, the TI, they had $20 per square foot for new, and they had $10 per square foot for renewal. Now, interestingly enough, we'd already agreed a deal with Paul. So Paul, again, is our guy on the ground. That's Paul there. You can see him. Now, the interesting thing with Paul is that he and his family are commercial developers, and they specialize in the medical field. And he personally has been in medical for the last 20 years. His brother owns a development company. And so they were a perfect partner. And the best thing is that they passed the pig and the chicken test, because we said, if we do business with you, will you invest your own money? And he said, yes. And on the basis of that, we went forward. So now we're starting to analyze the deal. And he said, well, I've done enough construction in the last 5 years. My brother owns a construction company, and I can tell you that the TI, tenant improvement, on a new building is actually $140 a square foot, and on a renewal is $40 a square foot, and those are actuals. And just with that, by adapting the financials and the models, we sat with the seller and said, your numbers are wrong, because there were a number of tenant improvements and changes over the leases and the term, and we brought the price down from $15.5 million to $14.5 million in 5 minutes. And the best part about Wealth Migrate and the crowdfunding is that we didn't even take 1 cent. Do you know that in the 20th century, we probably would have, people with that mindset would have tried to keep that $1 million and not tell anyone? Well, we didn't. We passed every single cent onto the investors. And why? Because we were also the investors, and we wanted everyone else to be treated the same way that we wanted to be treated. So there it is. That's how you save $1 million. You get on the ground and you get the right partners. You get the right information, you get the right partners, you get the results. So the seventh thing is our post-acquisition due diligence. So then we've done a deal now. It all looks good. And yet, how many people actually have a system like this one? Now, I'm just giving you an example, and I'm not going to bore you with it. But this is actually, I'm just showing you a manual one because I don't have time to take you into our back-end system. But this is a hybrid of Dr. Dolph DeRoos, Henny Besaidenout, Alan Nock, Bruce Saunders, Paul Shalonda, a number of very, very sophisticated people that have come together to put together a due diligence form that we use, and every single item has to be literally logged, ticked, when did it happen, who did it, and when we bought this building, this entire due diligence, every single item was ticked and signed off by the investment committee and all parties that were relevant to it. And when you look at it, there's some of them that are even quite funny, and this is really what happens with experience. It was like visited the property at night to check out what the property looked like. Where is it? Exterior light audit at night. There we are. I mean, that only comes with experience, ladies and gentlemen, where people are looking at it. So, if you want more information and you want to understand kind of how we do stuff, I can send you a video where Michiel spent an hour and a half explaining to our current Wealth Migrate investors how we do our due diligence. So if you want to just see due diligence, then he did an entire video on how we did it. Our REAM is our real estate management system, which is our ongoing system to track and manage our properties. Our private wealth solution, if any of you are like myself, it's very, very difficult to own properties in London, Australia, South Africa, and America, and it becomes completely overwhelming. In fact, I nearly wanted to punch my management company in the face just this morning, literally this morning, because I found out I didn't have a tenant in one of my properties, which cost me 12,500 Rand. And when I asked them why not, they said because I didn't sign some form. They sent me some flippin' stupid email about a week or a month ago. I don't know when it was. I get about 400 emails a day. And unfortunately, my assistant missed it and whatever. And so I lost a month's rent for no reason. Well, that's the private wealth solution. That's the private banking solution where people can ultimately have one person, one private banker, and Jaco Maritz is building that out, and it's coming to market in the very near future to be able to help people sophisticated be able to get it. And then really our pride and joy is our Wealth Migrate crowdfunding portal. Most of you have heard about it, but in simple terms, absolutely everything is online. You can sign up, you can choose the investments, you can do the entire transaction online, and you can manage your portfolio. And the best news is that the digital app is going to be out in the next couple of weeks, and so everything can happen from your cell phone. So, that just gives you an example of information and results. Now, people say to me, well, why would I want to come on a buyer's trip? And I've heard it all, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, I don't want to go with other people. I'm too busy. My uncle's Maltese poodles died. My children are at school. My children are on holiday. My children are in Tanzania. My children are up Kilimanjaro. And yet the successful, wealthy people that I deal with come. I'm not going to mention the gentleman's name, but he even had a personal family incident. And, 98% of people would have pulled out. But he had committed. He was coming. He wanted to get the information on the ground. He currently owns 18 properties in America. He wanted to get involved in the industrial and commercial stuff, and this was his opportunity, and he was there. The thing I've learned in life, those people that are successful don't make excuses. They get results. And so I believe there's 5 reasons that you should come on a buyer's trip. And we've got 2 buyer's trips at the end of October. Well, it's not even at the end of October. It's in a couple of weeks now to America. And then at the 22nd of October, I'm going to Australia. So half the team's going to America and half the team's going to Australia. The first reason you want to do it, you want to get on the ground and get the information. You'd be surprised how much information I get out of taxi drivers, what's happening in the economy, where the market's good. I learned in Vegas not to invest in Vegas from a taxi driver because he told me that over 1,000, I can't remember exactly, but it was like 1,000 people a week were leaving Vegas because there were no jobs. Unemployment was down. It was the highest unemployment in the country, and yet 65% of the economy of Vegas was based on tourism, and tourism was down over 50%. And it was the taxi driver that told me that. And it was at that point, along with the fact I couldn't find anyone I could trust, that I didn't invest in Vegas, even though it was a phenomenally good opportunity. You get to meet the partners on the ground. Yes, sometimes we get to bring the partners over, but there's nothing better than sharing a meal, having a beer, having dinner, in their private clubs, meeting them, getting to know who they are, asking them questions, not just on a business front, but over dinner and getting to know them as people, shaking their hand, meeting the lawyers, the accountants, the management agents, the inspection agents. We believe in complete transparency. So when you're on the ground, you meet everybody so that you can get a feel for how it works, how it operates. Because if you remember at the end of the day, we're not estate agents. We're not selling you anything. We're investors who are investing, and all that we're doing is sharing with you who we're working with and how we're investing. The third one that I realized that was massive. And if you want to come on any of the buyers trips, just type in there USA buyers trip or Australian buyers trip, and we can send you more details. And maybe not this year, maybe this one's too quick, but we do have buyers trips next year, and we will have the year after. So just type in USA buyers trip or Oz buyers trip, and we can give you more details. The third one is engaging with other sophisticated investors. Through the years, so many people have said to me, but I don't want to come with other people, and I'm going to go on my own, and what. It's pathetic, ladies and gentlemen. I have the privilege of 4 times a year getting to travel with the greatest minds around the world and to learn from them. I mean, that medical deal, I was sitting there with Dr. Dolph DeRoos, Henny Besaidnout, Alan Nock, Bruce Saunders, Paul Shalandra, and people pay $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 to go on commercial courses. And what I learned in just 2 hours of sitting around that table blew my mind from a commercial aspect. I mean, when I was in Sydney on Bondi Beach with Henny, and I said, why medical? Why do you even invest in medical? It doesn't make, why? And he said, well, it's very simple. It's the most recession-proof investment you can do in property. People always need to go see a doctor. Doctors do not move. They never move because their clients know where they are, and often there's planning restrictions as well. And thirdly, they're not that financially savvy. So where a business might move down the road because it's a little bit cheaper in rent, doctors are just happy to be doctors. And that's the type of value. You cannot read that in books, ladies and gentlemen. You can only get that by dealing. And why does someone like Yanni Moorman come? Well, Yanni Moorman gets to spend time with Henny. And Henny and Yanni, 2 great minds, think about the same problem in different ways. That's why Alan added so much value. And that's why we were able to do so well on that medical deal. So no matter how sophisticated you are, or no matter how beginner you are, it doesn't matter. You can learn, you can add value, you can ask questions. And, it's the old age of nature. A bird can fly 70% further in a flock than it can on its own. And that's the benefit of dealing with like-minded people. You can take action. There's nothing more frustrating than getting on an airplane and actually flying over there and coming home and not getting results. I've heard the story 100 times of how people fly there, can't find the right property, come back. We do not do that. We prep all our partners. We make sure that we don't go until we've got things lined up. And lastly, we have fun. I'm not ashamed to say we have a huge amount of fun on these trips. I believe we go to great places. It's a great experience. We have to have fun in the process. And I believe it's no coincidence that we come away as great mates. I mean, that rugby game that we all went to this weekend, 12 of us, everyone that was on that rugby trip has been on a buyers trip because we're all mates. We all get to know each other. That's why we do the breakaways. Because not only do we want to invest together, but we want to be friends together. And just like Henny said, we don't do business with people unless we like them, because business should only be about fun. There's plenty of business out there. We don't have to do things we don't like, and that's what the fun component is. And if you want to go and check out Yanni Moorman and his thoughts on his trip and coming on the ground, he came to Atlanta, he came to North Dakota, he met the entire team, and that's him talking about it. And if you don't know who Yanni Moorman is, go and look out the Moorman Group. They're one of the biggest property players in the world, one of the biggest in Southern Africa. I mean, he personally owns 184 regional shopping centers, and that's not through a fund or a REIT. That's personally. So we've done this a few times. For those of you who haven't read my book, Property Going Global, chapter 12, I actually dedicated an entire chapter, and there's 3 reports in there. The first one is the 5 things you need to know how to create wealth through property. The second one is the 6 things you need to know and ask before you invest in offshore. And the last one is make sure you have a successful buyer's trip. So from all our experience, I mean, we've helped over 2,200 people invest internationally. I personally have been doing this for 16 years. And so I wrote 3 reports, a simple, a medium, and an advanced, to try and help people make the right decisions. And so if you haven't got a copy of this book, please just type in Property Going Global, and I will send you a copy of the book. Because my philosophy and why I wrote the book, not only because Clem Sunter endorsed it and told me I had to, and when Clem tells you do something, you do it, but also because I'm passionate about helping people invest, and I'm pissed off about watching people make the same old mistakes over and over again. And because I've got the privilege of not only doing it myself, but also learning from some of the best locally and offshore, I thought, well, why not make it simple for people? So whether they want to invest with me or not is irrelevant, but at least they've got a roadmap so that they can achieve their success. So if you like property going global, please just put it down there. And then, sorry, in that last one, make sure you have a successful buyer's trip. If you are going overseas, and I know last week couple of weeks ago, we had our billionaire ball, and I spoke to a number of the very, very wealthy and successful property people here in South Africa, and 3 out of 5 of them I spoke to were actually going over to London. And if you're going to do that, whether you're going with me or not, irrelevant, I would really look at the 14 steps to success. It's 14 steps that you really need to know to make sure that you're successful on a buyer's trip. So again, if you want the book Property Going Global, go there, or if you're not on this webinar and it's a recording, go to propertygoingglobal.com, propertygoingglobal.com, and you'll get that. It's in chapter 12 of in terms of those 12 steps. But again, I'm just trying to help people make sure that firstly they don't lose money, and secondly they achieve their objective. Then something I did about 2 years ago, I actually built 30 video lessons. And so, well, it's quite funny. It's literally from the moment I arrive. In fact, I think I might have even taken one before I left from OR Tombo. And then it's from the moment I arrive, what do I do? Now, you must understand that I do between 4 and 5 international buying trips a year. I've done it since I started the company in 2004. But to be fair, even before I started the company, I've been investing since 1999. And I was doing at least 2 in those days. So if we take 2004, that's 10 years, times 4 trips, that's 40 trips, times 2 years, for another 6 years, that's 12. I've done well over 50 buying trips personally. And these are 30 videos that I made from the beginning to the end, and every lesson that I believe that you need to know on the ground. So this is not written in a book. These are videos that's me on the ground, and it's me sharing. So if you'd like access to my 30 lessons on how to be successful buying overseas, then I would suggest you type in 30 lessons, or if this is a recording, go to the website wealthmigrate.com, and we will make sure that we get access to it. Okay, so those are the 30 lessons that I suggest. So some of the excuses that we hear on a consistent basis: I can't make it, what next? I don't have the time, my business is too successful, too busy, it's not enough notice next year. You'd be surprised how many people in October of 2012 told me that the trip in October was too quick and it wasn't enough notice, but they'd definitely come on the next one. So what I decided to do was to map out the whole of 2013 and to send it to them in November. And we had 4 trips, one in February, one in, I can't remember, May, another one in October, whenever, July, and another one in October. And yet a minuscule amount of people actually came. And so I've heard all the excuses. And really, I've also watched the people that are successful and the people that aren't. And it's those people with excuses that are on the one side of the fence, and it's those people with the results that take action and get things done. But I do understand that sometimes people are too busy. And so our secret weapon is our mandate. And what I say to people about our mandate is that we are your ears and eyes on the ground. Because I don't care what it is, whether it's commercial, industrial, or residential property. If you look at 10 properties, 7 out of 10 might be good. In fact, you might look at 100 properties and you get it down to 10 properties. And of those 10 properties, you'd probably be happy to buy any one of the 10. But you've got to admit that 1, 2, possibly 3 are head and shoulders above every other property for certain reasons. And if nothing else, it's a gut feel because you're on the ground and there was a really nice looking school just down the road. Or in one example in Atlanta, there was a Starbucks inside the shopping center, and therefore you knew there was an affluent area and affluent type of clientele, and you knew that would be a big draw card. And you would never, ever, ever, ever find that out unless you were on the ground. So what we do is we are your ears and eyes. People give us a mandate. They tell us what they're looking for. It's a signed agreement. They actually they put down a deposit so that we know they're serious, and then that money is sent over. It stays in South Africa in a trust account so that it's protected, and then that we send all the information over to our partners so that they're ready when we arrive. And when we're on the ground, we have our mandates. The people that are on the buyer's trip get first option because they've taken the effort and the energy to fly all the way over there, and the second are the people on the mandates. And that's where me and our team, Jaco and Brendan and Michiel, Willie and Kim and Teresa and everyone, Ryan, everyone's been overseas. Henny, take responsibility to make the best decisions. And anyone that's been on a buyer's trip know that we've got an entire rating system. And then we sit at the end of the day and we say, right, based on what this person was looking for, this is the best property, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then we take videos, we take pictures, we send it all. In fact, very invariably on the buyer's trip, especially if Brendan's involved, it literally is being emailed while it's actually happening so that the people are sitting on the ground. It's literally like being there with having Google glasses on, because we're taking the videos, we're taking the pictures, we're sending the financials, we're telling you the pros and cons, and then you haven't committed to anything. Only when you agree that it's the property that you like, when you've got all the information you need, can we actually reserve the property once you give it to us in writing. But the beauty is, because you've put the deposit down, we can tell the people, whether it's in Australia or London or in America, right, they're committed, take the property off the market, and boom, they know that they've secured a great property. So if anyone's interested in our mandate process, as I said, I'm going over to Australia on the 22nd of where are we now? October, 22nd of October. So we're going to Australia, and Jaco's off, Jaco and Michiel and them are off to America. So we've got different people going to different markets, going to London in the near future as well. So people like it, write in the word mandate, and we can get back to you and give you more information about the mandate and how it actually works. But I believe that it really is one of the best things that you can do if you don't have the time. The other thing a lot of people do is they give us a mandate to get started. They test it. We call it the dip your toe strategy. They test it. They see how it works. And once they're comfortable the process is working, they then get on a buyer's trip and come over and really start to ramp up their investments. People say, well, why would you know what you're doing? Well, the bottom line is the results of our team. Our team that is helping you invest across our team and across our investment committee has 227 years worth of experience. We've done over 10,000 international deals, a total value of $1.32 billion US dollars on 5 different continents, and we've authored 19 different books. And to be honest, yes, Dr. Dolph de Roos has written 17 of those. I've only written 1 of those, but we do have extensive experience. And really, we like to hold your hand if you come on a buyer's trip with us and share that experience with us. But if you can't, then we can be your ears and eyes on the ground. And then a little trick that I wanted to share with people, which is what we call our leverage. But there's 2 ways to leverage. Sometimes we get younger people and they say, well, I don't necessarily have the money. Well, you'll be surprised how many wealthy people don't have the time. And so, but they know you, they like you, and they trust you. So maybe what you do, or maybe you're an estate agent, or maybe you're a financial planner, and you help other people invest their money. Well, there's no better way than to say to them, listen, I am going to take, at my risk, and get on an airplane and go over and look at these properties. But I will be your ears and eyes on the ground, because you might have never met me, Scott, but you've met that person, whoever it is, Pete Puchenpoel, or Sarah Dobbs, whoever they are, and they are your ears and eyes on the ground, and then they provide you with that information. But the leverage that they get is that ultimately they get the benefit of being there and turning a trip that could have been a cost into a profit for them. And the benefit for the person at home, well, some people don't have the time. What we've had on multiple occasions is a wealthy mom or dad that sends their son or daughter that's just finishing up at university or finished in their mid-20s and wants the experience. And they trust their children, but they don't have the time. And so they send their children on these trips so that they get the learning. I mean, imagine the learning that you get in that environment, but also they are their ears and eyes on the ground to give them their 2 cents. So, just think about the leverage thing. There's always ways when you think out the box as to how you can get what you want in life and help other people. So who would like another secret? I've tried to share a lot of the stuff that we do behind the inner circle tonight and why we've had the success. But just before we finish off, who would like one more secret? Now, this secret is the one thing that has helped me get exponential growth with less time and continues to make my life easier. And I'd like to say virtually daily. It's probably not daily, but certainly quarterly. It exponentially improves quarterly. So you can just see who's still awake here. And No, not many of you want to hear about it then, eh? Okay, well, it's a concept of copy and paste. Now, for those of you who don't know this man here, but it's Tony Robbins. And Tony Robbins is one of the best business and life coaches in the world. And he says the fastest way to success is to model other people. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I know that I've had the privilege, more than most, to have hung around very successful people. And they always say in life that you are only as successful, happy, wealthy, religious, content, sad as the five people that you spend the most time with. So I realize that I'm privileged. But tonight I've tried to share with you what they do, whether it's what I've read in books, whether it's what I've analyzed and researched, whether it's what I read about or watch on TED Talks, or whether it's what I've learned in person. There are simple trends, and that's why I spoke about simplicity. There are simple things that wealthy, successful people do over and over and over again. And as Tony Robbins says, all you got to do is model them. All you got to do is cut, copy, and paste. So take what's working and do it yourself. And if you copy what's working with other people, the chances are you're going to get the same results. Now, I'd like you to think of a time in your life where you've seen something work somewhere else and you've copied it yourself and you've got the same results. And you'll notice if you think about it, you'll be amazed. Virtually every time that you've been successful, it's because you were in a painful period, you watched, you learned, you read, you found out how to do it, and then you copied the process and you did it. But yet, why do so many people think that they can do it themselves, do it on their own? Even Richard Branson, who is completely different from anyone else, still has a formula. And if you read his book, it's a simple formula that he sticks to over and over and over again. It's the copy and paste. And I want to leave you with one last story, which has helped me get exponential growth. In 2010, or the back end of 2009, my philosophy in life was always to work harder than anyone else. Whether it was at school, I worked harder than anyone else and got the results. Whether it was on the rugby pitch, I was the fittest. When it got to business, I worked harder than anyone else. And yet, by 2009, I was getting the results, but I had hit my ceiling of complexity. I couldn't work any harder, and I was nowhere near as successful as I wanted to be. And so I decided to invest 500,000 Rand. Yes, in 2009, 500,000 Rand was a lot more money than it is today, but it was still 500,000 Rand. And I got on an airplane and I flew over to Vegas and then I flew to Fiji. And again, this is me there. You can see me there with a very good friend of mine, Andrew Ranston, in Fiji with Tony Robbins. And I learned things on that 5-day course that changed my life. But more importantly, I met people that changed my life. And as an example, I met one person. These courses cost $30,000 per time. And I said to him, how do you do this 4 times a year? I mean, this was a treat to me. And you do this, every 3 months. He said, well, I make sure that I make back that $30,000 in 30 days. And at the time, I was helping people invest in off-plan developments. The best case, no matter how hard I worked, I got paid in 2 years. And yet, by just hearing that, he didn't tell me how to do it, although the coaching helped from Tony Robbins and Chet Holmes. But just by hearing that it was possible, I found a way to do it. And in less than 3 months, I was paid 450,000 Rand into my bank account in 1 month. Straight away, in my bank account. And that was a mindset shift that just helped me explode. Because then I realized, right, all I got to do is get the right information and then hang around people that can inspire you and take you to the next level. And everything I've been trying to share, whether it's getting the right information or getting the right partners, it's about putting yourself in the right environment. If you think that these buyers trips are something that should be sneered at, well, go on YouTube and just type the word buyers trip. That's all you have to do. Type buyers trip. Okay, so BUYERS space trip, TRIP. You can see it up the top there. Trip, buyers trip. Okay, if you want to put in Scott Picken or IPS or Migrate, you can get more complicated. And you will see 50, 60, I don't even know how many videos there are there, of people that have been on the buyers trip. Because everyone that comes on the buyers trip, bar very few, see how much energy and effort we go into putting on these buyers trips. And we don't charge 1 cent for people to come on the buyers trip. And in return, all I ask for is they give me a video as to their experience or the team. And those are those videos. So go and watch them. You want to see what it's about? Go and watch them, because you can get an idea. And I would beware, because if you do come on these buyers trips, sometimes it might change your life completely. And jokingly, but Michiel came on a trip in 2012, and he was very high up in one of the corporate companies in South Africa. And at the age of 47, he decided he didn't want to be in the corporate world. He was passionate about property. He really enjoyed what he found on a buyer's trip. He enjoyed the team, and so much so that he's actually joined our team now and is a shareholder in our company, and now is part of the team full time and one of the real assets that we have in our team. And also now gets to do what he loves every day, which is deal with successful people and to analyze property deals and to invest himself. So, I always say, be careful. Sometimes you get what you wish for, and you might have a bit too much fun on the buyers trips and end up realizing that this is something that you want to do full time. So I promised you a simple plan, and a simple plan to make 2014. There's not a lot of time left, and a lot of people would have had a New Year's resolution on the 1st of January after the fact that the Rand tumbled so badly last year, that they wanted to at least do something this year. Like they wanted to get wealth preservation, a plan B, and peace of mind. And in January, they wrote down all their goals, and then now we're in October, and they're starting to panic, and they're starting to think that they, want to just maybe focus a little bit on their holiday. So the first thing is the consultation. And, what I'd suggest, sit down with one of our team, and, whether it's the US, Australia, or the UK, sit down with one of our team, and we will be able to assist you. If you want a consultation, just type in the word consultation, and me or one of the team will get back to you, basically. Read the book. The book is available. Again, I said to you, just type in Property Going Global, and we will send you a copy of the book. It explains who we are, where we've come from, how we do what we do. Tonight's been an hour-long webinar, but it obviously goes into a huge amount of detail. Watch the videos. I've offered to share those videos with you tonight. I don't normally do that, but the 30 videos I made, and I actually made those videos to train our team on how to go out and look at opportunities. Come on a buyer's trip. There's nothing better than coming on a buyer's trip. Some people know that it's only 10 days away or whatever, but you'll be amazed how many people have come on the buyer's trip when they've realized it was something really, really good. I'll never forget Micheline. I found out about it on the weekend and came like 3 days later. Wealthy people tend to, if they know something's good for them, they tend to take action, and that's what they do. So, but if it's not for you this year, well then certainly you should type in their USA buyers trip or Oz buyers trip, and we can send you the details for next year. The UK buyers trip as well, if you're interested in that, or give us a mandate. The one thing that concerns me, our next buyers trip will at best case only be in March next year, which is still 6 months from now. And every single year, from my experience over Christmas, the Rand has fallen. Again, properties continue to go up in value. And from experience, it really, the price of procrastination is something that is quite hectic. I certainly have experienced that from my life. And I wanted to finish with a personal story. And there are three people that I wanted to focus on. The first people were the people who we didn't even do buyers trips in those days in 2009. We only did mandates. And people relied on me when I went to Australia in 2009. Now, we were the heart of the financial crisis. People weren't sure, but Australia was at least more stable than everywhere else. And they bought properties in Australia at 6 Rand to the Aussie dollar. Okay, now we're well over somewhere between 11 and 12. So the Rand has halved since then. Their properties have gone up in value, and they've benefited from the passive income literally from when they owned it. And you look back now, and we've been meeting a whole lot of them. One of our partners, Richard Dunn, is out here now with Yakwa. They're meeting a whole lot of them, and it's amazing to talk to them and the gratitude that they've got. And they look back now and they go, I wish I'd done more. Well, my question is, where will we be 5 years from now? Or you could take another gentleman by the name of Gert. I went over, and one of my first trips to America when I went back to buy in August of 2012, I went to go and buy for myself. And he said to me, Scott, go and buy me a house. He said, I want it to be a nice house. I want it to be a brick house on 4 sides. And when I chose that house for him, it felt expensive at the time. And I was joking with him 2 weeks ago. We were sharing a beer, and he said, "Wow, I can't believe how much prices have gone up. I can't believe, the rent that I'm getting." And I said, "Well, you pretty much bought at the bottom of the market, and you've experienced the market upswing. But fair play to you for believing in me and the research we were doing and giving yourself the opportunity to take advantage." And then another gentleman, and I know he's online tonight, but his name is Michael. And we when people come on the buyer's trip, we ask them to put down a 20,000 Rand deposit. We're not a tourist agency. We've got no interest in taking people on holiday and showing them around and sharing them our decades of experience unless they're serious. And he got hold of me and he said, "No, he doesn't have any money." And I said, "Well, then don't come. We've got nothing about quantity. It's only about quality." And he said, "Okay, well, he'll do a deal with me. He'll put in 10,000. Now, lucky for him, this was couple years ago, and so I was like, "Oh, fine. He's prepared to put down something. At least he's not going to mess us around." And it's interesting because this gentleman's become a very good friend of mine, and he shared with me 3 times in the last 3 weeks at separate events how grateful he is that he put down that 10,000. And I'll say equally to his side, I'm extremely grateful that he accepted the 50-50 opportunity. I can categorically say for everyone else that those times have changed completely now, and people don't put in what everyone else puts in, then it won't work. But that gentleman now has gone on to benefit from the results of what he found out on that buyer's trip. He's met some wonderful people. We've created some wonderful friendships. He's built himself a really powerful portfolio now offshore. He's benefiting from the passive income. And, for me, it's a wonderful experience on every side of the fence because he was a massive value add on the buyer's trip. We've made a lot of good friends on the buyer's trip. He created what he wanted in terms of that offshore security and wealth preservation and plan B and peace of mind. But most importantly, what gives me a huge amount of gratitude is that he is so thankful that he took action and that he came, and that whatever, I allowed him to come for the 10,000, which for me is immaterial. But it just systemizes and sums up how valuable everything I've been sharing with you are tonight, because it's not about what you can't do. You can sit there now and you're saying, what is stopping you? What is stopping you? It's my kids. I don't have money. My business is too busy. I've heard it all. In fact, I challenge anyone on this webinar tonight or on the ongoing recordings to give me an excuse I haven't heard. But I have seen the results from the people that actually take action, the people that do something, whether it's come on a buyer's trip or go the mandate route. And so if you want to be part of that group, if you want to literally copy what the most successful people in the world do, and I've shared with you what they do, then I've simply shown you what you need to do. So just SMS that number, 072 575 8719. If you're outside the country, obviously +27. Just SMS it and just say, "I'm interested," or say, "I want the buyer's trip," or "I'm interested in mandate," whatever it is. USA buyer's trip, Oz buyer's trip, UK buyer's trip, or any of the other things that you want. And the team will get back to you tomorrow. Or if you want to send an email, send it to connector@ipsinvest.com. And if you want more information, go to either one of the websites, ipsinvest.com or wealthmigrate.com. And in simple terms, ipsinvest.com helps people invest in direct property in the UK, Australia, and America. And Wealth Migrate focuses on more of the sophisticated investments in all of those markets. And also, for those of you who don't understand, it's a concept of crowdfunding. It's the global real estate marketplace. And it also has lower barriers to entry for people. So go check them both out if you're interested. But in simple terms, ladies and gentlemen, all I can say, just like the 3 examples I gave you, take action, do something. Has anyone got any questions that I haven't answered? I've been trying to watch the different things here. So I must admit that Graham probably deserves an award, and if we want a buyer's trip, I'd buy him a beer, because he says his excuse as to why I can't come on a buyer's trip is catching poachers. Graham, well done. That is the first time I've ever been given that excuse. So and I said he's joking. So oh well. Anyway, it is still very good. Brian says I only have 50K to invest. Worth going on a USA buyers trip. Brian, the beauty with the crowdfunding space now is that the minimum investment in the residential houses is $15,000. And so, very much so, you get to learn, you get to experience, you get to touch it on the ground, and you get to ultimately decide if it's something for you or not. I believe that the education you get, the experience that you get, the people that you get is something which makes a dramatic change in someone's life. And I can categorically tell you that's why I do them each and every time, because I enjoy them so much. So that's my point. Average term before divesting, Tony Clark asked. That's a good question. I believe that if you're investing overseas, you should look at it with at least a minimum of 5 years. There are costs involved. You know, that question that I was just asked there by, who was it again? Brian, you know, flying over. I mean, flying over, it has a cost to it. And there's also a cost of not getting involved, which we all know about. But, you know, 5 years or less, I think that the transaction costs and what you're involved in and stuff, it's just not worth it, your time and energy and effort. So offshore investing is at least a 5-year time frame. And again, another trend I've noticed, the more sophisticated the investor, the more that they want to focus on buying good assets and holding them virtually indefinitely, even for their children. So let's see here quickly if there's more questions. People answering questions. Okay, the rand is at 11.25. Thank you for the update, Michael. I can see that there's USA buyers trip next year. Seychelles to South Africa in October. That's Annalise. Well, enjoy Seychelles, Annalise. I'm in Bali in a month. That's the benefit of going on buyers trips as well, is that you get to see the world. What about the accreditation hurdle for crowdfunding? Is there still there or not? Mark, it's being sorted out as we speak, and I think we've cracked it actually for South Africa as well. So that's certainly coming through. Sorry if I answered that before. I just came online. Nope, that's all good. And Michael is online, like I said, and he says it's the best 10,000 ever spent in my case. So that's just someone that really enjoys the buyer's trip. So are there any questions? Are there any other reasons? Anything else that people, you know, in terms of questions I haven't answered, in terms of how we can help? And as I said, you know, time is of the essence. We personally are going to Australia to invest heavily from the Wealth Migrate side, and Yaku and Henny are going, I'm going, what am I going? East to Australia, then I'm going to Singapore, then I'm going to Malaysia, then I'm going to Bali, all with investment in mind. And then Yaku and Machiel and Henny are going west to America to look at opportunities from, well, we've got a whole lot lined up actually to go and do final due diligence on residential, commercial, and industrial opportunities. So we got it covered. I've just sorted out my trip for next year to the UK. As I said to you, I've been quite worried about the UK for quite a long time, but we've got some very good partners on the ground there, and we'll be systematically and strategically buying stuff there when we find the right stuff. So I can see here, Kanya said, how are your plans going with Wealth Create to invest in low-cost housing in South Africa? Good question, Kanya. The website should have actually gone live yesterday. We are struggling a little bit with the South African domain hosting services, but that is any day now. The Wealth Create website will be live. And if you watch this space, Kanya, we've got something really, really exciting. We're going to be helping about 6.5 million South Africans invest as little as 10 Rand a day to benefit from the wealth effect of property. For me, it is very much in the whole realm of Project W Wealth, which is where we want to take the world's population from 12.9% to 25% who are benefiting from property or real estate growth or the wealth effect. And we very imminently are about to sign a contract and take that forward, which is amazing. Anton said, what are your expected return on investment of 100K? Anton, we don't look at anything. And again, I'm not talking in Rand returns. I'm not talking in capital growth. I'm not talking in Rand devaluation or anything. But we look at a minimum of at least 8%. So 8% plus. And then obviously you can add capital growth and capital appreciation and Rand devaluation should you wish. But we're looking at a minimum return of 8%. And believe it or not, you can get better returns with better assets in Australia, America, than you can in South Africa with all the risk that we take. And the beauty is the law protects you, and so you've got a lot less risk. Ravi said, what is the main minimum amount required for residential investments in Australia? Ravi, you're looking at about a 20% deposit on 400,000. It's about $40,000. I'd say about 40, maybe $35,000, $40,000 Aussie dollars. Again, our crowdfunding portal should be live in Australia certainly within the next 2 months or so, and that will then have a minimum, hopefully, of around $15,000 as well. And then Clinton says that's awesome. And Michael says real return in dollars after US tax is 8.6%. So that's from someone who's got many properties in America already and is telling you what their real return is. So hopefully, Anton, that answers your question. There's a current client telling us their real return is after US tax is 8.6%. Pierre van der Berg has said, any opportunities yet for investing in private name, or are you still limited to have to invest by means of an LLC? It's interesting, Pierre. Brennan is working on a concept at the moment where people can go through their private name, but there's a lot of logistical, legal, and tax issues that make that quite complicated. So obviously, as we want to bring the barrier to entry down, we consistently are looking at doing that, but we've obviously got to protect you as the investor and make sure that you're doing the best thing from a tax perspective. But at some point, we're going to give people the option. And if they do, they'll just have to sign a form or indemnity form for us that they went in with their eyes open, knowing that they weren't investing in the right structure. Christian said, will you send our emails to the email subscribers when the crowdfunding websites go live? Yeah, very much so, Christian. We'll keep you updated in terms of what's happening. Anton said, thank you. I get 10% in South Africa on my properties, but get 1 in Griffin. Okay, so Anton, it's interesting. You get 10% in South Africa, but the long-term average for the South African Rand to the US dollar over the last 20 years is 5.6%. If you take it over the last 30 years, it's over 6%. So if you're getting a net yield in America of 9% and a net yield in South Africa of 15%, then you're on parity. Now, if you think that I'm wrong, it's common sense economics. If our inflation is at 6% and the American inflation is at 2%, then our currency will devalue by at least 4% every single year. So if I'm getting 8% and you're getting 10%, I can categorically tell you that I might lose over 1 or 2 years, but over a 10-year plus period, I guarantee you I will win. Sorry to be crude, but it's the truth. The one in Griffin that you've got is we've got new financing, and Yaku is actually going to be coming after he comes back from the trip with a build strategy where you will actually be able to build it out in terms of what you're looking at. Tony says, what structure do you use? Tony, look, it's a challenging conversation to go through tonight because, again, it depends whether we're talking about Australia, the UK, or America. I'm not a tax expert either, but we certainly, having done this a number of times ourselves and helped many people, we do have the right people. But in simple terms, we've got the people on the ground to help you invest in the right structures no matter which country you invest in. Dino said, we need to sign a mandate to invest in commercial investment opportunities in the US under Wealth Migrate. So, Dino, what we like to do on the mandate side is obviously if you go onto the Wealth Migrate website and you sign up, so that's wealthmigrate.com, you will see there that what we've done now is we've got blind raise PPMs, which allows us legally to tell people the type of opportunities we're looking for. And then it's called test your water, which is a complicated way of basically saying that you're interested. And so say you're interested for, I'm going to make it up, 100 grand. Then you could put it in, you're obviously logged in, you registered, and you say you're good for 100 grand. And then what we do is that those people that say they're interested will get first dibs on projects. But that's the best way, Dino, to let people know what you're interested in. Okay, Anton, great. I look forward to hearing from you. And as always, we certainly don't know everything, and we're always keen to learn. And if things are working or not working, then I want to know more about it, and we can fix it. Because the one thing I can categorically tell you, that in property, if you think it's all going to work, then you're wrong. Because I guarantee you things go wrong. I told you just today that my management agent, who's looked after all my Joburg properties for 5 years, suddenly decided that after 5 years they needed me to fill in some document. And because I hadn't filled in that document, they didn't put a tenant in when my last tenant left. So, I don't care how many systems you've got in the world, things go wrong. But it's about the partners you've got to be able to jump on them. So let me know, and we'll see how we can fix that in terms of what your challenges are there, Anton. Brian says, you need to have an LLC set up to register on Wealth Migrate, correct? No, you don't have to have an LLC to register. You can register in your own name. But to purchase, at the moment, you need to purchase through an LLC. Tony said, thanks, Scott. Pop in for a cup of coffee sometime. Will do, Tony. Thanks. Great to see you again, and look forward to chatting soon. And Michael keeps telling us his return. He's obviously pretty chuffed with it. So are there any other questions in terms of where we are and what we've been through today? Hopefully, I've tried tonight to really kind of dumb it down and to just tell you as it is in terms of the experience I've learned. And that's why I joke with the little diagram I've got here on the right-hand side that says, well, now, wasn't that a no-brainer? And the thing in life is that, if you remember, I started off with simplicity is the art of perfection. And really, for me, or simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. And again, I say to you, the 21st century is about simplicity. Most people try and overcomplicate things, and yet it's simple. You get the right information and the right partners. You copy what other successful people are doing, and you will get the same results. And hopefully tonight we've shared with you what to do. And so if there's no further questions, I've given you the runway. Get the information, find the partners. If you want to do it yourself, go for it. I'd highly recommend coming on a buyer's trip, giving us a mandate, but most importantly, engaging with us so that we can share our knowledge and our expertise and help you get the results that you want. Annalise said, thanks, Scott. Maybe see you in December at Knysna. We'll be in Brenston-on-Sea. Good luck on the buyer's trip. Annalise, perfect. Let us know. If you're on the lagoon, I'll certainly be there, probably with a beer in hand and water skiing. My next trip is going to be 4 weeks long, so it's a long way away from home. And then I've got a week around South Africa, and then I just found out today I've been invited to MIPIM, which is the biggest property event in the world. We're already speaking as their crowdfunding expert in MIPIM in France and Cairns in March next year, but I've just been invited to Hong Kong. So I'll be going to Hong Kong in the first week of December, and then be taking a long holiday. Shamij has asked, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, the 30 lessons. Okay, so everything that you would like. So no problem, we'll be sending that through. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's enough. As you can hear, my voice is going completely. I blame it all on the Springboks, but what a wonderful win, and how fantastic for myself and our team and our friends and clients who were with us in Ellis Park watching such a wonderful game. So thank you for all of you that have been online tonight. It's wonderful to share this with you. I've got goose pimples sharing it with you. We're very, very passionate about what we do, and hopefully that we've just shared some jewels to you so that you too can walk away, create global wealth, and invest with confidence. Good night, and thank you very much.